All right, front row dads, welcome to the show. If you're back for more, thanks for listening. And if you're here for the first time, I'm John Vroman, and this is the show for family men with businesses, not businessmen who happen to have families. I'm joined today by three great friends and front row dads. I've got Lance Salazar here, Seth Dailey, and Joshua Macias. Guys, welcome to the show. I'm glad you're here.
Great to be here.
Let's do a little rapid fire intro of who each of you are, so everybody out there listening knows a little bit about you. And let's just talk about how long you've been married, how many kids you have, how old they are, where you live, and also what's your situation right now when it comes to education, because that's going to be one of the paths that we'll follow for this show. Lance, I'm going to go to you first, buddy. Anything you want to say?
Sure, buddy. Yeah. I've been married about 15 years, almost 15 years. We have two daughters. They are 11 and 8 years old, and we live in the Northern California, Sacramento area. And, you know, our education experience runs all the way from public school to Montessori, through homeschooling, and now starting Acton. So we've kind of done it all with both of our girls. And so that's our experience. We've used tech a lot. We even use TV a bit. So
Lance, tell everybody, a lot of listeners are going to understand Montessori. That's a more, widespread term, but Acton, clean that up a little bit. Tell us what is Acton Academy? Right.
Well, our Acton journey has just started, but Jeff Sandifer founded Acton in the Austin, Texas area. But what we like about the Acton model is that it still serves kind of a homeschool-ish or unschooling-ish sort of platform, whereby the kids are more self-starters. They kind of choose the things they want to learn, but they're also given the opportunity to work in a collaborative nature with other kids around them, so that they have these peers with them, helping them. Like, they have to start businesses, so their peers kind of help them, with ideas to grow the business, kind of very mastermind-ish in my mind with regard to Acton. We've just started our journey. The girls both are really excited. In fact, they tried a couple of days last spring and we're like, we want to start now. Like, we're done homeschooling with you guys. We want to start Acton. So
that's awesome, man.
Looking forward to see how it all unfolds with them.
Very cool. I'm going to roll right from there to Seth, because Seth, your kids have also been in Acton and are now going to be in Acton in Austin. So tell us about your family and your educational journey.
Yeah, so I've been married 19 years, and we have four daughters. So just turned 16 this past week, and 14, 10, and 7. And we've kind of been the gamut of public schools, private Christian schools, a couple other environments in the Baltimore area, and then last year we started going to an Acton, so a very small first year Acton environment in Baltimore. Kids loved it. We loved it. Really wanted to start one. And one thing kind of led to another, and we realized that we want to put them in a really rich Acton environment. So as of last week, we are starting to live across two cities. So I'm in Baltimore right now. I'll fly back to Austin here tomorrow, and I'm traveling back and forth, keeping the business running. And yet Alice and the girls are in Austin, floating between Airbnbs until our apartment is ready, and they are attending Acton in Austin. And it's a great experience so far. It's going to be a lot of fun this year.
It's really cool, man. Oh, I one of the things I love about our community is the guys that are willing to just take and make bold moves, right? I think about Lance, like you selling out of, a gigantic home, moving into a smaller place with some solid land, getting a farm going with your girls, just the adventures that our guys have taken. And Josh was actually passing through town because, he's been in real estate. He owns some homes. He just doesn't live in them.
It's the difference between owning and being house free. I'm house free.
He's on the road. And, and then I think about even what happened last night. Tatiana gets home from Russia. She gets in at 12 midnight. And I think it's literally, I think she gets into bed at midnight and she whispers in my ear, I think this is so perfect. This describes our relationship so perfectly. She whispers in my ear, not what you think, by the way, after not having seen each other for 16 days. She whispers, I think we should move our family to Europe. That's what she said.
That's
Literally, we spent 3 years traveling around the U.S. to figure out where to call home. Went to Austin, and literally last week, somebody's like, so you're gonna stay in Austin? I'm like, dude, I could never see myself going anywhere else until my wife says, I think we should move our kids to Europe. And I'm like, sure, baby, sounds great. When are we gonna go? And but just the idea of how quickly things could change, and that we're all willing to do interesting things in pursuit of interesting lives.
That's how I roll, man.
Yeah.
Stay fluid.
So, Josh, tell us about your family and your path right now with education.
Right on. So, been married 15 years. I have 3 wonderful boys, 10, 9, 5 years old. Total balls of energy. My mom gave me a white hex. We're California, and she said, "You're going to get it 3 times worse than you gave it to me." And I guess that's what happened. I got 3 boys that are high energy, high spunk leaders of themselves. I've been in real estate since 2003 when I got out of the Navy. I've just been full stream. It's school of the family. My background is also in IT. So I have a few IT degrees and MBA in this that I used my GI Bill to get after being in nuclear power school in the Navy. So I come from a big tech background, but also big real estate. And I've been in this veteran education as well as veteran transition housing program for the past 7 years, which I started this program that went federal. So I'm a bit of a regional guy, and I've been traveling a lot the past 3 years. And I just got sick of being away from my family. I said, hey, guys, we're going on the road because there's a lot we need to do covering across the country. We have different houses in different places and different as well as relationships, and also to this vacation market. So because of that, we have connections. And so we want to land in places, and we land there for a few weeks at a time. And I'm also doing business with these relationships in different places across the country. It makes total sense to have my family with me because that's who I want to be with as much as possible.
It's awesome, man. All right, guys. So the reason that we wanted to get together and chat today was that Josh was at my house, and we were talking about, I don't even remember where the conversation had stemmed from or what we were talking about, but it might have been the fact that our boys were playing Minecraft. It might have been
right. They're Minecrafting out. Yeah.
There was a lot of iPads out in this moment, and I was talking about my struggle with technology, and some of it I like and some of it I don't. Here, one of the questions that I keep asking myself is Minecraft educational? What is educational? And then we were talking about even cybersecurity. The conversation was evolving, and it was moving around. And
cyber hygiene.
We were talking about. And so it's like we were talking about photographs with kids and how when we post them, you can know exactly where that picture was taken. And if you take pictures inside your house and you post them, they'll know where your home is. And there's all these things that are important to know. And then we get to determine what's important and how we utilize it. But if we dialed in on something specific here, what I want to start with, and I'd love to ask all of you guys to chime in, is let me ask a very broad question, which is, how do you currently view tech in your home as it relates to education? And you can take that anywhere you want, because there's a million questions we can ask, from how much time do you allow your kids to spend on the devices, to what games do you allow them to play, or what sites do you like, or services do you use? How do you involve tech and your kids, and what's your philosophy on it is a big open-ended question. And I'm just going to say, Josh, maybe because the conversation sparked with us, why don't you take first stab at this? Tell us your thoughts.
Yeah, right on, bro. Tech in our world, as it is right now for all of us, is integrated, right? Our children, if they're born within 10 years, as I have 10, 9, and 5, are digital natives. We were, in our generation, digital immigrants. We came into an information age shift. We're going into from a different shift of age of information into digital. And these children are born, and then an iPhone is right in their hand before they're 1 year old. So before they're 1, they're already figuring out to swipe. They're touching, they're turning on. My son, when he was 9 months old, turned on the iPhone. I was shocked with a little 3G in his hand. I'm like, the kid, what's going on here? So that sense that they're already immersed in it, it's not going to ever change. This is where we are. This is the time, unless, you go and do the total disconnect and shut down everything and you're just on the farm, which I'm all about, dude, by the way. 100% sustainable farming, all about it. if we do that, that's the only way it's going to happen. You're up in the woods and you're just cut off. But if you're immersed in society and culture, technology is all wrapped around them. And so what do? Well, you got to provide, in my world, my thoughts are the proper protection and to teach them proper cyber hygiene so that they understand, well, you know what, just like there's influenza and you have to have proper hygiene on your own body, there's going to be digital stuff like that. Those bugs are always getting around you, and trying to educate them along the way, and yet using the good tools that are out there and available. And if they're not, well, let's make them. And that's what I've been about for the past 10 years, is getting involved with tech and saying, hey guys, what are we doing in a Socratic method, critical thinking, to really expand this level of education that we have such a broad amount of information to boil it down into a way that really makes sense for the child and also helps them to be immersed in it, but have control and strength and not be controlled by it. You know, in the psychology, we understand dopamine effects. We know that they're going after and getting these pings, and it's creating a dopamine psychological effect that they want it, they crave it. We don't want to create this dependency where they're just wrapped around technology controlling them. The other way around. We want them to use it as a tool and use it in the right way so that they learn, hey, this is the right way to do it, this is the wrong way to do it, and having that critical thinking mindset to say, how can I apply it to my life, and also problem solve and the critical thinking. So that's what I've really been going after when I build, whether it's a suite of apps or if I'm working with them with technology or video. What is the timeline? How am I helping them with their critical thinking skills? How am I helping them to advance even beyond where their peers are at, but playing to their strengths and also helping them with their weaknesses so that they're not just focusing on the Minecraft all day long, and that they're lost in YouTube and being bombarded with this garbage that's out there in the cesspool of the internet, which a lot of it is. Like 90% of the internet really is a cesspool. And being one that half of my business is in IT, I can say that most definitely. So as fathers, we want to protect our children most definitely, and that's one of our main stakes, right? Our protectors of our household. And so as a Navy warrior and guy that's been connected in counterterrorism and counter-narco-terrorism, I can tell you there's an enemy out there, and they do target your children. So if that's the case, and we know that, what are we doing to create this protection around them, but not so much that we're hurting them from being able to grow and develop in the modern age. So
hey, Josh, let me ask a question about that. Let me ask a question about who is after our kids? Like, who's the villain?
Like, man, I mean, there's a lot of them, right?
But in the tech space, in the educational space, like, where do parents need to be concerned?
So there's there's catfishing going on. There's people that are acting like children, but they're not. Playing Roblox, for that matter. Just running around, creating accounts, pulling children into chats, talking to them that are really adults. They're not kids. How do you know the account holder on Roblox is actually 10 years old, as they say it? You don't, unless you know the family, unless you know who they're talking to. Go to Facebook Messenger. The same situation there. They could be messaging them photos. Think of your iMessage. I mean, there's tons of that going on just in the adult world, and the same issues are happening for our children, against our children. YouTube videos. You think you're on a child. Oh, I put in there regulate 9 years and lower. So there's YouTube stuff. Well, they're infiltrating that. They're creating videos that are improper innuendos. I mean, look at what's going on in our public system and how they're trying to massage and take away masculinity. They're pushing that. There's not a sense of Christian thought process that's going in there. It's quite the opposite. So there's a big push in the opposite direction that's happening on YouTube. Any of the channels, any of the things that you would normally do as an adult and action orient in, they're attacking children right there. And there are people that are wanting to utilize those environments to pull children into their world and to then manipulate them or shift their thought process. So there's a lot of that that's been going on, false accounts.
Lance, let's go to you, buddy. Same question. Like right now, what's your, let's even get more specific here when it comes to like what apps, what sites are your girls using? What are you approving of and what's working?
Great. Yeah, that's a great question, John. So I'll kind of, since we're looking at tech and how that influences our kids and what have you, I'll stay away a little bit from some of the positive tools we used as far as homeschooling, like Khan Academy, or what's another one we used for them? Khan was a big one. Time for Learning was another one that we used. But the idea of when they ask for tech, when they ask for things that we're not sure are the best things for them. I know, like, you even asked us earlier about Minecraft, right? So our girls are kind of into Minecraft, and I think there was some apprehension at first, and we can use this as a great example. But some of the things we put in front of them, well, first, we've always been really conversational and transparent about the risks. Like Josh mentioned, Roblox, for example. Yeah, Roblox, they played that for a moment. We knew that there was public access to the people that were involved in that, and we knew that Hooli or somebody might get approached by somebody that could be a 50-year-old dude.
Yeah, man.
It did happen, and she already knew that was a risk, because we were having that conversation with her, and as soon as it happened, she's like, I'm out, and she stepped out. Minecraft, what we do is, if anybody's not familiar, you can actually create worlds that only you can have access to. So our girls have been homeschooled for the last 2 years, right? So they've made friends in other schools and sports that they don't get to play with very often. So sometimes they get to FaceTime, but sometimes they get to jump into Minecraft with them, where they create worlds together that only they have access to. There's no outside influence, no outside access from anybody that they don't know in their worlds. What's been beautiful, exactly. What's been nice, a challenge in our house overall, is our kids fight a lot. Our two girls, they bicker at each other. And I'm going to give a positive spin to Minecraft. Generally, when they play Minecraft, it gives them an environment to collaborate together and actually get along. It's really interesting to watch them work together and build stuff, where they're high-fiving each other because one has a strength in doing this and the other has a strength in doing that. And so that's been nice for us. But John, I think overall with that question is they approach us with something they want to have access to. We research it. We have an open conversation about the risks of it. And if we feel as though there's an opportunity for them to learn a little bit from it, whether it be good or bad, we'll let them do that. And then if it's bad, we just cut it out. It's not much more complicated than that, to be honest with you.
When you research a product, Lance, what are you looking for?
I'm looking for other comments from other parents. So is what I'm looking for. I'm going to jump aside a little bit and use like TV for an example. We use Common Sense Media as a tool to help us know whether or not something's appropriate for their age group. And I don't necessarily use their own, review of it. I look at all of the parents' reviews. I read everything. And the kids know this now. Hey, Dad, I want to watch this. Can you go to Common Sense Media and see if it's okay for me to watch? Because we've made that part of the conversation. We've made that part of the transparency. We're not trying to shelter them from anything, but we're also trying to limit their exposure to things that could be damaging to them.
Do you find that when you go to Common Sense Media as an example, do you ever go there and say, all right, look, everybody agrees that you need to be 12. My son's 9, but look, he's advanced for his age. So I'm just like, do you actually adhere to the suggestions, or how do you bend?
I don't look at the age. I kind of look at the comments, for example.
The comments,
right. You've got some families, everybody's got a different value set, right?
Sure.
Some families are very much like, there's no cursing in the house. Dude, we swear like sailors in this house. So if some mom says this is appropriate for a 13-year-old because of all the F-bombs dropped, we know there's no problem for our 8-year-old to watch it. if that's the thing. The things we value are the limit of exposure to the sexual innuendos and things like that, we don't want them exposed to that. But if it's a B word, F word, S word dropped here or there, that doesn't bother us because they can just listen to their mother. So
guys, let's go to Seth real quick and get your take, Seth, on, again, specifics that, resources, tools that you believe in that are working for your family in the tech space.
Yeah. So certainly where we've seen tech really having a benefit has been once the kids started to go to Acton. So, I mean, just like a few of the resources that they're using and my degree of knowledge on these things is limited at times. But so for grammar, New Reading, Read Theory, they're using Nucella for writing and reading. And then obviously the whole platform is integrated on Google. Spelling City, Duolingo, and Lexia.
Duolingo's good.
And there's, I mean, our involvement is less and less. Like we like the structure that they're in terms of like we feel like these programs are well vetted. There's conversations going back and forth, and it's interesting just because we've got 4 daughters, so we're actually watching like the older 2 daughters have a little bit of I don't know, oversight, or like they're very protective of their younger sisters in this as far as kind of what they're doing, and it's a lot of stuff in our household is it's very much out in the open. There's not a lot of using their computers in their room, completely unmonitored type of environment. But those are some of the resources. And I think overall, like it's anytime we can limit screen time to have real conversations, but we're teaching that technology is good for how you use it. Like it's good for the good it can do. And it's good for the ability to be in touch, but out of reach. And what it allows our family to do in terms of travel, and how it allows them to be productive or work on what they need to work on anywhere. And you know, we're huge fans of just the Mark Twain quote, don't let your schooling interfere with your education. And so any chance we have to pull them out of whatever sort of rigid school structure there was, to go to a conference, or I took Carissa and Laura last year to Tony Robbins, and we'll take them all to Best Year Ever. We're taking them out to a random real estate conference in a couple of weeks. We'll take all 4 of them. They'll be out of school, and they'll bum around Denver for a few days. Anytime we can get them in that environment, but we want to give them the tools to be able to not get behind while they're there.
Makes tons of sense. Makes tons of sense. Guys, there's a lot of places we could take this conversation, and I like the base of where we're at right now. Part of me wants to have a conversation just about Minecraft right now, because my boys are so into it. Seth, are your kids into Minecraft?
They are not. So I will learn.
All right. Yeah. So, well, and I think that you could apply this to just about anything. So I want to make it relevant to everybody. So let's talk about this as it relates to games or online tech that could have something to do with, like, let's take Minecraft, Fortnite, or even more specific, like a Prodigy, or any of the ones that you recommended, Seth. So like part of me says, all right, look, Minecraft, they're building things, they're collaborating. I get it. I've heard the same argument for Fortnite. Prodigy is like you're doing math problems, you're battling these villains, or you're battling, but in order to, you know, swing your sword or whatever it is, and I could be totally misrepresenting Prodigy right now, but in order to
right,
that's
in
correct,
order
right?
to attack, you have to do the math.
Yeah, in order to attack,
in order to send and if you do it wrong, it's a miss. So you have to do the math right in order to hit.
So I want to know from you guys, how do you regulate time on that? Because part of me wants to say, hey, if he's doing math and he's playing Prodigy, let him play forever, right? And then there's part of me that says, that's not good. You know, there needs to be a limit. There needs to be a cutoff here. Where does it, my kids are fighting during Minecraft. They're arguing, they're debating. I'm going, hey, that's actually kind of cool, because they're like, you're in my house. You got this, like learning how to be a roommate, right? Like you can't spawn chickens.
Yes, exactly.
There's spawning 1,000 chickens and tigers killing them. And then there's like, you can't kill chickens if you don't ever, I mean, it's like, literally, I'm thinking, this is
Wait,
awesome.
that's my pen. That's my pets. What are you doing?
As much as I hate the fighting, I'm so grateful that they're actually like learning to get along. Like a little bit of that rub, it'd be like saying, hey, in a marriage, you should never fight. We know that's not the case. Lance, you're a pro at this. You wrote a whole book on the subject. But it's like, listen, there should be some arguing. There should be some fighting. There should be some struggle with it. But then again, sometimes I see like Ocean, after playing 30 or 40 minutes of Minecraft, feels like a different kid. Like I go to take the Minecraft away and he has a total meltdown. And I'm going, maybe this is not good. So how do you guys regulate time and addictions, and whether or not it's too much play or whether they're learning?
I could chime in real quick on this.
Go for it.
Yeah, we look at things as, educational tools and games. And even though they might be learning some things, as like you said, like with Minecraft, Johnny, that's still a game for us. So when it comes down to them getting access to Minecraft, we're just, again, it's transparency and communication and clarity with them. So in order for them to get access to Minecraft for X amount of time, and we'll say what that X amount of time is, you want 30 minutes of Minecraft, then you need to do these things with your homeschool journey before you get on to Minecraft. That's just, and then we say exactly the amount of time. You know, in fact, our 8-year-old has gotten really good at like, Alexa, set me a timer for 40 minutes, you know, and then she knows, Alexa, how much time is left on my timer? So she knows, because we've also run into the trap of like, time's up. Hey, I'm in the middle of getting this, and, you know, and I just need 5 more minutes. And it's like, no. So she knows I've got 5 more minutes. I better either cap this project off in Minecraft that I'm doing or what have you. So that's my short answer to that.
Yeah. Seth or Josh? Josh, you got something?
Yeah, man, I totally agree with you on that one, dude. What I do is I have them do a specific amount of time on their education every day. So they're locked in that this is your focus time. So all 3 of them are separated. They're in their specific level. We also utilize Accelis. I don't know if you guys know about Accelis, but it's a pretty good suite of apps in there. And it's built in a very solid way where they're coming in with videos and they're educating with science. And then they have to go through and take midterms and finals in order to complete the course year. Caleb was really excited because in your house, he did his final exam for the whole year previously, because I let him extend out through the summer, but he was already working on the next year. But I wanted him to just finish this really long course in science, so he had that sense of completion. He took a 100 question final and aced it, and he was so excited. And I did not at all, gentlemen, coach him through that whole year, and he aced his whole year of science. So all through that Accelis program, he was self-taught, self-paced, went through the program, and learned a ton of information that he was talking to me about. And as we're traveling, he's telling me the stuff that he's learning. I'm like, man, I didn't even know that. I'm like, are you smarter than a 5th grader type of situation, you know? And even being in science, that really surprised me. So there was a lot of things that he was learning that I was not privy to, that the education was bringing to him through Accelis. So I said, hey, you have to have this amount of time in Accelis. You have this amount of time with Adventure Academy, which we just added on. That's a pretty cool one. Kind of built alongside the Prodigy Zone, made by the guys at abcmouse.com. That's a really good one for the youngins, abcmouse.com. And it's grown from there. And that's what Adventure Academy is about, where they're virtually immersed into this world of education, where they're doing games, but they're education games. Accelis is kind of the same way. It's not a full-on gaming environment like Minecraft, but it's still pulling that side of the psychology where they're getting that dopamine effect, they're getting a positive response, like Prodigy is doing as well, where they're giving them that positive reaction for doing the education, but they're immersed in a virtual environment. Then they're all like, hey, wait a minute. Hey, brother, I see you're in the same area of the world I am. We're both learning about the same thing. And so in a real-time environment, they're in separate areas, but they're not a virtual world being educated on the same conversation. And so then that gives them a chance to then pal around in there and say, hey, have you checked out this? No, I haven't. Have you looked at this? No, I have. Yes, I have. And then they just keep moving on at their own pace. And the education is pushing them, but and I'm also regulating that. So I'm saying, okay, you can have Adventure Academy because they're really digging it, they're getting into it, and I'm using that as a positive learning tool. And I'm saying, this is your amount of time of focus. Now, hey, you've done a great job on your work, your handwritten skills are getting better. Go ahead to Adventure Academy and decompress for a while and learn around in there for a while. And then from there, I may then take them to another suite of apps. And so I'm always watching, seeing where their psychology is, where their mind is, where their spirit is with one another. And that's what you were talking about, John, where those are spirit learning education opportunities within gaming world, where you can get into how you can help them with their social skills. And so that's important, but I think that needs to be on the tail end of their education zone, right? So that's like eating a cookie, right? It's like, hey, I want to go chow down on some cookies right now, but that's not your main meal, dude. That's not what I'm going to give you all day. So when are you able to do that? It all depends on the child. I mean, for my sons, 3 hours of education, but for them is focus, right? They're in it. It's hardcore. It's for an hour solid for them. They're doing nothing else. And then they take a break. then they go right back at it again. It's hardcore for them, and then they need a break. And I'm okay with that, because when you're in the public system, you get 15 minutes of focus time in an hour. There's all this other activity going on. So we can really say if you boil it down into 2-3 hours of focus time in a day, you're getting sometimes more education than in the public system in that focus time. We talk about that with our own businesses, right? I'd rather have 3 hours of just hardcore press business, dealing with my business during the day than 8 hours of unproductivity. So they're being very productive when I'm getting them in that focus time. So then I give them that opportunity to use Minecraft and other games like that.
Seth, any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I'm not going to add much to this. I think this is great. We're on the same page when it comes to like the gamification of learning. Like, in any chance we get to kind of merge those two concepts is great. I liked the comment Josh was making there as far as eating the cookie. What we're always looking for is, what is the detox environment like when they actually get away from the screen? And I think that's how we measure the health of what screen time does or doesn't do to the kids. Is like, okay, so pull them away and now see what the reaction is like, and see how long it sort of takes them to reset. And I think that's, as dads, as families, like, are we having those conversations to figure out what sort of impact this is actually having on the kids? That's where we notice if it felt healthy, or if it felt like it got to the spot of being toxic in terms of either length of time or just sort of how immersed they were in it, et cetera. So these are great comments.
I would be interested, Seth, for you and Lance specifically, with your kids at their ages. What's your take on the phones and their freedom with phones? Do they have them? Are they allowed to have them? Can they do anything they want on those phones? Right? What's your take there?
Yeah, I would love to. I'd love to get some advice on that one. So Lance will have those answers in a second here. I'll just have the questions. So we've got 16, 14, 10, and 7, and feel like we've gradated through like how much access they have. Obviously, once they start to travel, especially if they're traveling solo, like they've got more access to a phone. And it's always interesting, right? Like the firstborn, it feels like always gets access. It's the hardest for them to get access. And then their younger siblings like get what they had at 15, they get it at 12, and they get more of it, or whatever it is. So we're struggling with that balance right now. We're definitely monitoring the amount of usage and looking for like, I'm actually looking for apps to monitor what exactly is being done. Approving apps, et cetera, and spending time. I think the biggest thing for me is still like as little, as often as we can be in the family environment, the better, and minimizing just them going into their rooms for hours on end is a focus that we've had.
Yeah.
So, leave it to Lance here.
Yes. So I'll start by saying this real quick. So if you are not modeling healthy phone activities in front of your kids, then they're going to do what you do. So if you're on damn Facebook scrolling all the time, they're going to want to do what you do, right? So we've got to be really good and vigilant about making sure that, hey, I'm setting my phone down for the night. It's over here. I'm with the family. I'm not going to be looking at my phone. And we're not perfect at it. In fact, I wouldn't say we're super great at it. But we've recognized that if we're not modeling that healthy behavior with our phones, that they're just going to do what we do. Second, really quick, our 11-year-old has a phone. It's mostly for emergency purposes. And, she does text her friends here and there, but, Brandy is very, vigilant about looking at what she's doing on there. But Huli, our oldest, she's a good kid. And she, because of the communications we've had with her, she's pretty thoughtful about her use of that phone, and her sister does not have one yet, although like Seth was saying, our 8-year-old daughter wants one now because of her older sister. And we even, with that communication, we have Huli, our oldest, kind of listen to podcasts or things where adults and even kids are talking about cell phone usage. One we listened to recently with Cal Newport, you might be familiar with Cal Newport, he even said that there's an addiction to these phones now. We've all heard this and we know this, but what I thought he said was very interesting was that teenagers are now starting to recognize this, and they're going through like their own self inflicted rehab programs to get themselves off of tech, recognizing some of the negative detriments that it's having on their psyche, on their psychology. So we're just, again, we just communicate, we're open with Huli about it, and we do our best, which could be better, at modeling our own phone behavior so that, you know, she follows the same path.
Josh, you had some thoughts on this?
Yeah, big time. Lance, that's great stuff, man. I totally agree with what you're saying as well. My kids have pretty much had an iPad since they were 2, you know. I established that regimen, setting the restriction requirements in there immediately, you know, as well as the iCloud login. I know when they're on it. I have their screen time checked. But I utilize and I download the apps that I know, and they have a suite of apps that are child development related. And then they have a little quadrant for gaming, right? They have activity games, and then they have their own games. But I leave them on there. And I say, when you're done with this, you can take a break. Now, if I find them, oh, I'm done, and they're really not, then they get disciplined for it, because this is more about a character issue. They're realizing, oh, well, I'm actually not done, so I'm jumping over here. And I'm okay if they're needing a mental break after 45 minutes, and they say, Dad, can I do that? Like, sure, you have 15 minutes on that, and then you got to go back. And then they know that I can see everything. So I'm like, hey, guys, I see everything you do. Every time you watch it, I'm Dad, the oversight. Remember this. And that keeps that sense of security for them as well, that I'm aware of their activity. I'm not just, I bought a Chromebook for my son, and I gave him access to his user control, and then I have my own. Now, a lot of times, it's just left in the master use because there's certain sites that he has to get to with a Salazar that it shoots him to for education. And I don't want to be there always pressing the button when I'm in a phone call, I'm in a business meeting, and I'm having to approve it every time. So I gave him that flexibility, but that has to be monitored big time. We rolled into some issues there. We have to do better at that as well. Also, that's tied in with the Roblox stuff that I was talking about. But at the same time, I was getting him on code.org. I highly recommend that to everybody, where he did an hour of coding. And he does that hour of coding. I put it on Facebook. People were cheering me, saying, good going, Josh. I was like, it wasn't me. It was my son that was doing it. It was he's the one that's doing the coding at that advanced level. I could, but that's not the point. It's that I'm helping him through coding when he was in 2nd grade. So kids at a very young age can do block coding now. There's a bunch of gaming apps that are using that to teach block coding, which I highly recommend people to look into. So there's a time where I gave them the iPad, I restricted it. They know that it's restricted. They know that they have a certain amount of time on it that they can utilize it for schooling and then for gaming. And I set that regimen according to their needs and according to who they are. So that will shift into the phone environment. We had some phones, which we practiced doing. The iPad is one thing, phone is another. So when we're mobile, we can have them do some mobile stuff where they can share it. That didn't go too well with the younger ones. We ended up having to take it away because it just became too unrestricted of access. They were using YouTube too much. So we just had to press the reset on that. I encourage fathers to do a bit of both. Set the restrictions, set the opportunity for them to have some not unrestricted access, but you still monitor that, because that's really deadly and dangerous if you give it fully wide open. Because again, going back to that previous statement about proper cyber hygiene, 90% of the environment out there is a cesspool. So we want to keep them that straight and narrow, right? We want to utilize technology for it. So that's my thought process. It's usable for a tool, set the restrictions, monitor the screen time, give them specific goals and tasks that they can utilize it for, and then give them their opportunity to have free time and use it freely.
Thanks, Josh. Appreciate that, man. Kind of final words from Seth and Lance. Anything you guys want to add to the conversation here before we sign off and say goodbye?
I'll go ahead. I'll just reiterate what I've kind of said is to be, what's worked for us is being open and honest, communicative and transparent with our kids about the risks of, these apps and these games and what have you. And then using them more as rewards and being very clear on the time limits on it, and just being upfront about it. And the more we've done that initial work, and having those maybe uncomfortable conversations, actually it's gotten easier to have them later on down the road. It sets sort of a new foundation and a new standard for them on how to use technology in the future.
Mm-hmm. Great stuff, Lance. Thanks, man. Seth, any final words?
Yeah, I just think it's about the conversation is the relationship, and having these conversations away from screen time makes every conversation during screen time easier. And the continuing to teach them like that these things can be used for good, and these things can have really, really powerful positive effects and negative consequences, like depending on how it's used. What I'm inspired by this call is like I need to up my game as a dad in terms of like some of the oversight, and this technology is constantly changing. Like I've got some responsibility in that, and yet that's gonna be our life, right? Like this is constantly going to be happening. So the question is, what conversations and what habits are we setting aside to actually be having these conversations with the kids on a regular basis?
Yep. Guys, this has been a great chat, and I can see that we're just opening up a lot of doors here for some other great chats because there's a lot to this. But I think we've covered some real basics and kind of beyond the basics too. But the idea of, what I see as a theme, having done this Front Row Dads thing now for 3 years and talking with amazing men like you, asking a lot of questions and looking for the patterns, right? Like, what do you hear all the time? And one of them that keeps coming up is, like most things, you've got to know your kids, right? You've got to know your kids, and you've got to know where their maturity level is, what they can handle. You've got to notice them enough to notice their energy. How are they as a person when they play that game? How are they as a person when they spend that much time on a device? When we really know someone, we can make better decisions. It's not even just enough things to say, hey, I heard about ABC Mouse on a podcast. I'm going to download it and hand it to my 4-year-old and say, have fun. Like, you got to sit with your kids and play the games with them, watch them. Right? It's, last night I'm watching a movie that I'm trying to debate whether or not I want Tiger and Ocean to see. So I said, I'll watch it first and then I'll decide if it's going to be okay. Right? It's getting involved at that level, and it's paying attention to know your kids, right? To do it with them, and not just get a resource and hand it to them. So I think there's a lot that we could continue to chat about here, clearly, but we've gotten some great stuff rolling here. I'd like to continue the dialogue within our Facebook group. So anybody out there listening wants to join the conversation, just go to frontrowdads.com/Facebook. Join a conversation of 1,200 family men with businesses, and their conversations around, whether it's intentional parenting, marriage, if it's work-life balance, or anything that relates to you being a stronger leader for your family, with your family. We want to have that dialogue. I want to thank Josh, Seth, and Lance for all being here today. Guys, thank you so much for the conversations. I also tell everybody out there listening that we will gather up the resources and the links that we said during the show. You might not have caught some of the names. Specifically, we will put all those links in the show notes under this episode at frontrowdads.com, so you can just go and browse and click, and we'll try to give you a short description of what all these sites do and these apps and the resources that are available. And if you enjoyed this show, please pass it along to some other dad out there who would benefit from this. And I'll also say that if you're interested in joining our Brotherhood, we're opening up enrollment in November. We do live monthly trainings where you can ask any question, get support from the guys, and also invites to future retreats that we have, which are in-person 3-day events. Our next retreat, guys, October 23rd through 25th. It's going to be awesome. San Diego. I'm really pumped about it. Guys, that's it for today. Thanks so much for being here. Appreciate all of you. And to all the men out there, go be engaged with your families and make it happen. See ya.